everyone will begin to find their seats. Past residents of Temple Beth Abraham, please come up to the bima. Everyone kindly find their seats. Friends, please take a seat. Please take a seat.
Trying to get made plus every time.
All right, friends, we're about to get started. All right, if you have not yet put on your talit, one of two evening services that we wear our talits for. That's because the Torah scrolls are taken out. And as we prepare, Megan Chartier and Alden Cohen are going to play Kol Nidre before it is sung those 3 times. Past presidents are on the bima. They're younger than they used to be because we have more and more. And had to pull up extra chairs. If you want to start to prepare, you can be on page 204, but really, this is just listening now as Kol Nidre is played. so much, Alden and Megan, wonderful members of our congregation and professional musicians, play in the Oakland Symphony, among other places as well. We're going to turn now to page 204. The past presidents are on the bima. I want to thank them for all the hard work they've done over the years. They'll be holding Sifrei Torah throughout. There's only 4 Torah scrolls in the Ark, which means, and we do Kol Nidre 3 times, which means I think 3 of you will not be holding Sifrei Torah during it, even though we'll pass them between people. If you want, you can pass it in the middle of Kol Nidre. At this point, we invite everyone to rise. There will be no procession. You see it says in some congregations, but Hazmiya will be singing Or Zarua while we take the scrolls out and hand them to various people.
Or Zarua Hatzadi Uli Shrelet Simcha 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 Or Zarua Hatzadi Uli Shrelet Simcha.
One time through the bottom of page 1, the affirmation, the Shiva Shel Mala.
Beshiva Shamala Uveshiva Shamata Al Dat HaMakom Ve'al Dat HaKahal Anu Matirin Leitpalel Im Havayani.
Top of 205, Kol Nidre, all the vows, recited 3 times.
Kol Nidre V'yasarei V'charamei V'konamei V'chinuyei V'kinusei Ushevu Kol Nidre, Nidre
Be seated on Shabbat. We continue on page 206.
Mikolot, Mayim Rabim, Adirim, Nishtreyam, Adir B'marom Adonai, Edotecha Nemnu Me'ol Lecha Anahava Kodesh, Adonai Le'orech Yamim.
Please rise briefly for the Baruch Hu, page 207. On page 209.
מלכותו ברצון, קיבלו עליהם משה מרים ובני ישראל, לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדונה, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא צלילות אוסף מלכותך ראו בניך בוקר ים לפני משה, זה אלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר בדרנה את יעקב וגדלו מיער חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נעל ישראל. 11. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלום לך, ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Please rise for B'Shamru on page 212.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת קין נפש. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליהם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו. יתקדש שמי רבה ויאמר דברי פרטי ויעמד מלכותי וחייכון ויומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלל בזמן קריב במהרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי הוויה. יתברך וישתבח ויפאר וקרמה ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשם בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ביומה במהרו
goes all the way from page 213 to 220. go to the bottom of page 226. 226. Salachlanu. The first three stanzas and the last stanza is clay in the hand of the potter, so are we in the hand of God.
Anu yameinu ketzeh over, ve'ata ushnotecha lo yitamu, Eloheinu ve'avoteinu tefillatenu. Tavo lefanecha tefillatenu, ve'al titala mifchinatenu. She'ein anachnu azei panim ukshei oref. Lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu. Tzadikim anachnu ve'lo chatanu. Aval anachnu ve'avotenu chatanu. Ay, dai, 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 yada, dai, 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 yada, dai, 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 dai. Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Tibarnu Dofi, Evinu, Hirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, Yaina, 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 Yatsnu Ra, Izavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Ahavinu, Ahashanu, Sararnu, Ishinu Orem. Sarnu mitzvotecha mimishpatecha tovim v'lo shava lanu v'ata sadik al kol ha'baleinu ki emet hasita va'anachnu hirshanu.
237. We're going to do the first stanza in Hebrew, and then the second in English, and then the third will return to Hebrew.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בעיבוד צלם.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבלי דעת.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בביטוי שפתיים.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגילוי עריות.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי בלבסתם.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדעת ובמרמה.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדיבור פה.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהונאת רעיה.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהורהור הלב.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבגידת צנוע.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבידוי פה.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזלזול הורים ומורים.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזדון ובשגגה.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחוזק יד.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחילול השם.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בטומאת שפתיים.
ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בתשות פניהם.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע. ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים. ועל כולם אלוה סליחות סלח לנו מחלנו כהפר לנו. ועל כולם אלוה סליחות סלח לנו מחלנו סלח לנו מחלנו
We have sinned against you through denial and deceit.
And we have sinned against you by taking bribes.
We have sinned against you by clever cynicism.
And we have sinned against you by speaking ill of
We
others.
have sinned against you by the way we do business.
And we have sinned against you in eating and
We
drinking.
have sinned against you by greed and oppressive interest.
And we have sinned against you through
We have
arrogance.
sinned sinned against you in everyday conversation.
And we have sinned against you through conspiratorial
We have
glances.
sinned against you through condescension.
And we have sinned against you through stubbornness.
ועל חטא שכנו לפניך בפלילות.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך לפניך בקלות ראש.
ועל חטא שכנו לפניך בקשיות עורף.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בריצת רגליים להרע.
ועל חטא שכנו לפניך ברכילות.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשבועת שווא.
ועל חטא שכנו לפניך בשנאת חן.
והמצווה לא תעשה, בין שיש בה כלום מעשה ובין שאין בה כלום מעשה, את הגלויים לנו ואת שאינם גלויים לנו, את הגלויים לנו כבר אמרנו לפניך, והודינו לך עלינו, ואת שאינם גלויים לנו, לפניך הם גלויים בידויים. כדבר שנאמר, הנסתרות לאדוני אלוהינו והנגלות לנו ובנינו עד עולם לעשות את כל דברי התורה הזאת. ואתה חומרך ומקבל שבים ועל התשובה מראש הבטחת יחלות לה.
Avinu Malkeinu, because it's Shabbat, there will only be one, and it will be a Ne'ilah. Just so you know, after Kaddish Shalem, I'll give the sermon, and then we'll have Aleinu and Mourner's Kaddish. The sermon tonight is upsetting, and so I want to just warn you in advance if you don't think your kids should be in here. Just telling you that now. They certainly can be, but I will be talking about disturbing things. Page 245, Kaddish Shalem.
יקרא ויקרא שמי רבה, ועלמא דברך יורתה וימליך מלכותה, וחייכנו וימלכנו חיי לכל בית ישראל, עגלה בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולם יתברך וישתבח, יברך כרמן וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה. בחצה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, תמיר עמל, יעילה, 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 יעילה,
We can close our books for a bit of time. You're okay in America. Heard those words every Shabbat morning when I first came into services for my first 2 years here at Temple Beth Abraham. A man named Jack Jager would sit right about where Greg Korn or Jenny Abrami is, one of those two rows. He was always waiting when I walked in. And he said that because having survived the horrors of the Holocaust, he believed that Jews had finally found a safe haven, that we were indeed okay in America. After this past year, it's hard to be so sure. Physically, we know we are, or at least we believe we are, and we probably are. emotionally and psychologically, we're not. Most Jews in America are not. It was written about eloquently this past week by Bret Stephens in the New York Times, who wrote, "Maybe this is the year that American Jewry woke up." As much as I've talked about it too much this year, and as much as I don't want to really talk about it tonight, I feel obligated tonight to talk about anti-Semitism. With a 400% increase in anti-Semitic acts last year versus this year, which to be honest feels like a woeful undercount, I feel that to not address it in this large group would be shirking of my duty as a rabbi. I also think that just as we often look back at different parts of Jewish history and wonder what were they thinking, I kind of want somehow on some record what happened this year and what we were thinking about it. So some of this is honestly for documentation and posterity. And I want to begin by comparing it to a sermon I gave about anti-Semitism on Rosh Hashanah in 2003. It was called the Shofar's Alarm of Rising Anti-Semitism. And I was particularly concerned when I looked back upon that sermon about the kind of anti-Semitism that's disguised as just anti-Zionism. What people call progressive anti-Semitism, although there's really nothing progressive about it at all. I was concerned that we were ignoring its rapid growth, partially because we were at least as concerned about the traditional right-wing anti-Semitism, the white supremacist, skinhead kind of anti-Semitism, which was a force then and is still a growing force now. But I still felt like this one, it was exploding before our eyes. We weren't really understanding it, and that would eventually have a broader reach, particularly in the circles that most of us frequent. Now, I was hardly the first person to mention this phenomenon. MLK talked about it actually in the 1960s, but I've never been so unhappy about being right about something as I am about that. Now, before I go on, I do have to say, and I really do mean this sincerely, criticizing Israeli government, Bibi Netanyahu, that's not anti-Semitism. It often correlates, but that is not anti-Semitism. We know because Israelis criticize their government more than just about anybody else. But if you think that's mostly what we saw this year, certainly nothing that I am going to say will convince you otherwise, but I'm still going to say it, again, partially for purposes of documentation, but also because I firmly believe it. What we saw this year was unlike something, or really anything that I've seen in my lifetime. If we haven't learned this year, then we'll never learn that just anti-Zionist rhetoric so often leads to actual anti-Semitic action, hate crimes, vandalism, destruction of property, and physical violence. In addition, you have the standard, double standard and demonization of the only Jewish nation on the planet. You have the fact that anti-Semitic tropes that have been used for 2,000 years against Jews, you substitute the word Zionist or Israeli, and you're hearing the same things about greed and power and bloodlust and blood libel. Add to that 90% of Jewish Americans identify as Zionist, that you can often just substitute the word Jew for Zionist, and a whole host of other things. We should have learned by now that we are dealing with something that is not just anything. So back in 2003, I cited 3 examples of this phenomenon, local examples. One was a professor at UC Berkeley who brought into his classroom the book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, in his Middle Eastern Studies class. For those of you who don't know what that book is, it is an anti-Semitic forgery that purports to be the secret meetings of the Jewish plot to take over the world. And he brought it into class and he said it's really never been proven whether it's true or untrue. And I also talked about a boycott at the Rainbow Grocery Co-op in San Francisco of Israeli products. I should point out that it was rescinded fairly quickly, in fairness to them. And the other thing I talked about was a litmus test set up by the Women's Rape Crisis Center. If you wanted to volunteer for them, you had to sign a pledge against Zionism. Now, none of those things are good things, right? But they kind of seem tame and quaint by today's standards. That litmus test, so many organizations have that litmus test. Some make you sign a pledge, and some it's just social pressure, but environmental groups, LGBT groups, women's groups, unions, so many. And if you want to talk about boycotts, it's like whack-a-mole. Rainbow Grocery was one thing, but today, this year, I found myself going from Safeway to Trader Joe's to Berkeley Bowl to Lucky, none of whom gave permission for people to put these stickers on, but I found myself taking stickers off of these products, Israeli products, which said things like, this product was made by the blood of Palestinian children, or if you buy this product, you are a supporter of genocide. And it's not just the grocery stores. There's the organized BDS movement, boycott, divestment, sanctions, and there's the restaurants and the coffee shops, the signs in the windows, printed on receipts, themed things like from the river to the sea, or from our blood with stones, or Zionists not served here. And literally, some of you know this already, literally on the menu this week at a cafe in Oakland were two new drinks, the iced Intifada and a juice drink called the Sweet Sinwar. This is, I'm not making this up. If you want to talk about academia, I mean, where do you even begin? Maybe I should begin with the physical violence, students who were beaten up at the University of Pittsburgh and the University of Michigan in the past 2 weeks. But I should probably stick to more local examples, although I'll give one national example, which is that part of the demands of a lot of these student groups and the protests is that Hillels and Chabads, two of the few safe spaces that are left for Jews, that they be booted from campus because they have Zionist and Israel ties. In fact, there was a student at University of North Carolina, either today or yesterday, I watched the video. That's the line that drew the loudest applause, that Hillel should be removed from campus. But let's get local. We can talk about the Stanford professor who singled out the Jews in the class as the colonizers in a simulation, and the rest of the class were the colonized. We can talk about UC Berkeley, where the dean of the law school, free speech expert, Dean Chemerinsky, there were posters, caricatures of him placed all over campus with a hook nose, a Jewish star, and blood dripping from his hands. And the same people that made those posters then came to his house to disrupt his dinner with law students, with third-year law students. Or we could talk about the students who were at a lecture at Zellerbach Hall, an Israeli lecture, who had to be led out of secret passageways and tunnels, ironically, to get to safety, because the police were so concerned for their safety. The encampments, yeah, the ones at Columbia are probably worse. We have students from Temple Beth Abraham at Columbia. They had to endure just some of the worst in the country. Let's form a human chain because Zionists are trying to enter the camp. The person who said that, by the way, also said, we're lucky he just doesn't go out and kill Zionists where he finds them. And he said in recent days that he makes no apology for that remark. UCLA in California had some of the worst encampments. There's nothing wrong with a protest or an encampment, right? But when you don't allow Jewish students wearing visible Jewish symbols, or people who are known to have been to Israel or be friends with Israelis or be Israelis, when they can't pass through to get to class, that's not just anti-Zionism. And some of the biggest destruction of property occurred at Cal Poly Humboldt and UC Santa Cruz. So it's local, all right. Except it's no longer just in the universities. It's absolutely filtered to high schools, middle schools, and even elementary schools. The Liberated Ethnic Studies program, one of the examples in high schools. In middle school, a walkout from a Berkeley middle school. They walked out to the Berkeley JCC and shouted from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and the only people who could hear them were the little preschoolers at the Berkeley JCC. And in elementary schools in our area, books about bullies called Zionists and I is for Intifada have been read to children as young as kindergartners. There's also the Oakland Education Association and their various teach-ins and statements. And we can see it's really in our face. And it certainly does not seem to be going away anytime soon. Well, there are three things that seem to be just a little different or extra that really concern me about this round of anti-Semitism. One is the mob mentality. You can see, if you've been by some of these rallies, the anger in the eyes, the hatred you can hear in the voices. It feels like you're not that far removed from a pogrom. Now, a lot of the people who attend these rallies are peaceful, and they're also attending because they see people dying, right? There are 40,000 Gazans who have died, and many of them are children and civilians. I know the ratio may be the lowest of all time, but it's still, by any objective measure, horrific. And yet, if you find yourself at a rally with a Hezbollah flag or Hamas flag or a Nazi flag, you probably should not be at that rally. And what does it take to be truly anti-Semitic and not just anti-Zionist? Does it have to say death to Jews specifically? If it says death to Israel, is that just anti-Zionism? Or what about Tel Aviv shall burn? Or what about globalize the Intifada? Intifada is a word that literally means struggle, but when I hear Intifada, I hear Intifada 2, which in Israel meant suicide bombs, and pizzerias and cafes and buses. What about by any means necessary? Any means. Is that not a call for violence? Whatever you think, hatred in a mob has never ended well for Jews or anywhere else, any other people for that matter. I know we're addicted to protest in our time and our place, but this is not just that. My second sort of new concern is language. I feel like we're living in an Orwellian dystopia. George Orwell, 1984, how language was changed and shifted and adapted and shaped to mean new things. I also feel that Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda in Nazi Germany, his line about how if you repeat a lie often enough, eventually people will come to believe it, it rings very true at this moment. The weight of lies is heavy indeed. Because what's happening is words like colonialism and ethnic cleansing and apartheid, they're untrue and bad enough, but genocide, the way that genocide is thrown around now, it's truly frightening to me. Again, I want to repeat that something can be objectively horrible. War is horrible. Palestinian innocents are dying in this war. But that doesn't make it a genocide. The Palestinian population has actually increased tenfold since 1948. A genocide means the attempted annihilation of an entire people. And I know there are other United Nations definitions and ivory tower academic definitions, but that's what it means from the Latin. On the other hand, the original Hamas charter literally calls for people to kill Jews wherever they find them, and the Ayatollah Khamenei, on a very regular basis, calls for wiping the Israeli people off the face of this planet. So genocide and language. And the last one is young people. The amount of young people who are involved in this is scary. And those things that we're seeing on the campuses, led often by professors, but especially graduate students and students, the things they say in the rallies, the things they are teaching and hearing in their classes, the resolutions that are brought before the student government, well, they're coming to a local city government and a school district near you. Except we live in Oakland, and we're ahead of the curve because it's already here. For those of you who were brave enough to sit through a 3-hour hate fest of Israelis, Israel, Zionists, Zionism, and just plain Jews at the Oakland City Council meeting shortly after October 7th, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then our city council, after all that, after listening to 3 hours of Jew hatred, unanimously voted for a ceasefire resolution without accepting any amendments, without any mention of the hostages. And in the schools, it is not a wonder that many of you have left the Oakland School District, although other school districts have plenty of similar problems too. But ours, with the OEA and the teach-ins, that's why over 60 Jewish families left the Oakland schools this year, and that's an undercount also, because that only counts the people who left for other public schools. Lots of people left for private schools as well. You don't want your kids ostracized or singled out or to feel unsafe. But what might be even worse than what has happened to the feelings of our Jewish students is that a lot of those teachers who are most passionate about this teach in schools where the students have never met a Jewish person in their life. And if these students are taught that Israel is evil, that Israelis are evil, that Zionists and Zionism is evil, 90% of American Jews are Zionists, what do you think they're going to think of Jews in general? I have a very sad story to share with you about that. I'm looking here because I remember standing right here. After the first AME church was burnt in that fire and they were meeting here, I was helping them get their sound set up at their first service. And their sound system was attached to that, and I was helping. And one of the members of the church came up to me with his 9 or 10-year-old son. And he said, "Son, this is Rabbi Bloom. He's Jewish. He's a very nice person. Jews are just like anybody else. You don't have to be afraid of them." He didn't learn this from his parents. His parents are wonderful. Well, back in 2003, I said that I don't believe that it is happening here. I still don't believe that it is happening here and now. But I think this year, we began to see how it could happen here or anywhere else, as it's happened throughout our history as a people. Because all it takes is good people standing by and doing nothing. Except that a lot of those good people this time aren't standing by and doing nothing. They're actively participating in the fomenting of hatred. They don't mean to. Well, some of them do. They are absolutely open anti-Semites at so many of these pro-Palestine rallies, which are not pro-Palestine rallies. They're anti-Israel rallies for the most part. They're not ceasefire rallies for peace. They're anti-Israel rallies. A lot of these people, though, who are there, they just, they see innocent people dying. They want to say something. They want to speak out, and it's understandable. They don't have our history. They don't have perhaps our paranoia. But as the saying goes, just because we're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get us. They don't have that, but they're still contributing to it. All the while believing that they're just helping and looking out for the downtrodden. And that doesn't make it better. That actually makes it worse. Because what intelligent people can do, what intelligent people can justify in the name of doing what they think is the right thing, is very problematic. So mostly, thus far, and I'm getting close to the end, I promise, I've documented some of what we're thinking, or some of what I'm thinking, some of what we're seeing. But I know that doesn't really make a sermon. What are we supposed to do about it? How do we fight this anti-Semitism? How do we get rid of this anti-Semitism? And looking back at 2003, I said we had to speak out and speak up. We had to call it out whenever we would see it. We had to work with allies. We had to work in dialogue groups. We had to educate ourselves and others better. All that is still true. And if we hadn't done all those things, it would be worse. And we must continue to do those things. And we do have friends. Again, not as many as I'd like, but we have them. I'm going to digress for just a moment. At the same time, and I haven't seen this show yet, and I know I'm going to hate it, but at the same time where we see a 400% increase in anti-Semitism, the #1 next Netflix show is about people who love Jews. Or at least one person who loves Jews. So. Anyway, so we do have that. The ironies of that, we have friends. We really do. Still, what are we supposed to do about the anti-Semitism? And I can tell you that if I had the answer to that, I'd have won a Nobel Prize. Anti-Semitism is a mutating virus. It shifts its shape, it adapts. The moment you think you have a handle on it, it changes, and it cannot be eradicated. That's why we haven't been able to do so for 2,000 years. Yeah, we need to fight it. Yes, we need to hope. But we know that it's a mutating virus. We cannot control what other people think about Israel, Israelis, Zionism, Zionists, or Jews. But what we can control is what we think about Judaism, what we think about Israel. Karen and I are going again in December. It's not a congregational trip, but you're welcome to join us. When you feel safe enough to go, please do. But I want to talk about making Judaism meaningful to ourselves. That's our sacred duty. They're going to think we're Jews anyway. We might as well embrace the gifts that our peoplehood, that our faith gives to us. We need to teach and live by Jewish values and mitzvot. We need to teach about ahavat ger, loving the stranger, because we were strangers ourselves in the land of Egypt. We also need to teach about ahavat Yisrael, loving your fellow Jew, and that Israelis are our family. We need to teach ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. And we also need to teach ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. We need to take care of the poor, the widow, and the stranger. We need to be Shomrei Adamah, guardians of this earth. We need to visit the sick and comfort the mourners and rejoice with bride and groom. There are so many values that we must make a part of our very being. And the way I'm going to finish this is I'm going to go around the room now and let our sanctuary tell you the values that we should be embracing. We need to be like that flame, that burning bush, alive and passionate for the Jewish people, but never consumed. We need to live by the words of Micah on that ark. What does God require of us? Only to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. We need to be a ner tamid, a light unto the nations. We need to be a 6-branch menorah. A menorah is supposed to have 7. This one has 6. Why? Because the menorah is a symbol of perfection and a redeemed world. Our world is not redeemed, and it is up to us to redeem it. We need to hear the call of the shofar, a call to justice, a call to repentance, a call to return to God, to the Jewish people, and to our better selves. We need to embrace the hospitality lesson of Sukkot. We need to think about Hanukkah, the idea that we should be bold and brave and free to practice our Judaism, no matter what anybody says. We need to remember on the back wall those who perished in the Holocaust, in the Shoah, those who died in pogroms, those who were part of the first and second destructions of the temple, those who were a part of October 7th, to honor their memory by making Judaism meaningful and important to us. We need to understand, as Purim teaches us, that we can defeat anti-Semites. We defeated Haman, and when Purim comes, we should party, we should dress in costume, we should drink if you are able to, because that's part of the tradition too. We should stomp out that name, knowing that we survived and we are here to thrive. We should have the most beautiful, meaningful Passover Seders that you can imagine, celebrating that God brought us out of Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, crossed the sea in a miracle, and we celebrate that freedom, not freedom just from slavery, not just freedom from a tyrant like Pharaoh, but freedom to be Jewish, freedom to make Judaism meaningful to us. We must celebrate that gift of Shabbat, the gift that we were given by Hashem, and the gift that we give to the world. Celebrate it, rejoice in it, guard it, keep it, observe it, make it meaningful. And the last window there, Shavuot, that's the window that symbolizes our Torah, the ultimate gift, living by the values and the mitzvot that are in that Torah, studying that Torah. Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam, the study of the Torah is equal to all the other commandments combined. And we need to read the Mishnahs on it, and the Gemara on it, the Talmud, the Midrash, Rashi, Ibn Ezra, Ramban. Rejoice in that Torah. And we are going to rejoice with that Torah in about 10 days, 11 days, because on Simchat Torah, we're going to have the opportunity to dance. And it is not going to be easy, because it's going to be the Yortzeit of the English date of October 7th. And we're going to be thinking about those people who died defending kibbutzim, who died in the arms of their children and parents and grandparents. A concert just to dance. We will dance on Simchat Torah. We will dance again. And that's the way, Jack, that we will know we are okay in America. Amen. Please rise for the Aleinu, page 240. Cantor Richard Catholic, May Landowitz, Jack Lorber, Abraham Maltzman, Curtis Manassi, Edith Odenheimer, Emmanuel Manning Ryder, Elizabeth Rosenberg, Evan Morris, Donald William Steele, Faye Sellinger, Gloria Sims, Rose Wasserman, Solon Weiner, Mary Weinstein, Lena Zupkoff. Teresa Day to remember Maury Goldberg, Sylvia Saunders, and this week lost Dr. Myron Lee Blumberg, father of Kim Blumberg, for 60 years. Memories of all of them will be a blessing. I ask all those who are in mourning or observing Yorkside, as well as anyone else who would choose to rise for the mourner's cottage at this time. Bagalav Isman Kariv Imru. Yehesh me Rabba Mevorach Leolam Lameo Maya. Roma. Kucha. Berchata V'Shirata. Tushberchata V'Nechemata. Damiran Bialma Vimru. Yehesh Lama Rabba Min Shemaya. V'Chaim Aleinu V'Kol Amen.
First of all, just a couple of quick thanks. So, Gevet for so tomorrow we're going to be before break. Everyone here is invited to gather in the chapel for our study. Probably people figured it out. Run back table. I know I saw Raina walking around with the street in front of the back, and parking and shuttle. Men's club and Israeli dance in bloom, Rebecca Callahan Klein providing some snacks, and of course, children candy. And of course, that Torah and scrolling. So that's Thursday, October 24th. The service then starts at 6:15. Thank you very much. And see you all tomorrow at Metro.
Thank you so much. Garrett will conclude with Either Don't Longer Yigdal, Yeah, we'll announce which one it is.
Had a special request.
Allah